What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. My name is Rob Doster, and I wanted to touch base here on this Friday afternoon before the Super Bowl because there were some things that I was thinking about. There were some conversations that we had on the Field of 68 after dark the last three nights that I want to kind of work through and I want to kind of talk through. And some of it is just me going through the thought process and working through some of the content that we create. Some of it is just thinking about the run in that UConn has this year and looking at their schedule and what they've played. We had a conversation last night, Josh Pastner, Jeff Goodman, and myself, about the nightmare matchups that some of the top teams could face. And I wanted to dive into that a little bit. And I look, frankly, I wanted to promo the film room breakdown that I did of UConn's ball screen defenses, which you can find on our YouTube channel. You can find on my Twitter feed. You can find on Instagram. You can find on TikToks. I posted it to the Boneyard. Anywhere that you consume UConn content, that's going to be there for you to be able to find somewhere. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about the Butler game, but I thought that was that looked like a team that was a little bit tired. They had played 4 games in 9 days. And I guess we'll get into that here in just a second. First and foremost, if you do like the content that you are seeing and listening to here, please rate, review, subscribe, engage, do whatever you can do to try to help with the algorithm there. That's the kind of stuff that we need. That's the kind of stuff that makes this podcast go. And that's the kind of stuff where if you're getting the content for free, that's the best way to support it. That's all we really ask. Connecticut won on Tuesday night in the XL Center against Butler 71-62. It wasn't the greatest fan environment. It wasn't the loudest building that anybody's ever heard. It wasn't the greatest performance UConn basketball has ever seen. It was just kind of a metronome, right? I said on After Dark where UConn feels like they are the kind of team that is going to kill you by 1,000 cuts, right? It's death by 1,000 cuts when you play them. Last year, to me, it was Andre Jackson that kind of epitomized what the UConn basketball team was, right? He kind of had moments where he looked unsure of himself. He had moments where the confidence wasn't there. He had moments where he wasn't maybe the best that he could be. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you would get these blow-up moments. You would get these runs where he's throwing these no-look passes and he's throwing down these dunks and he's making all these plays defensively and he's doing all these different things that nobody else can really conceive of doing, right? And that's when they go from being good to being completely unbeatable. It was kind of like you were waiting for the Avalanche, right? You were waiting for them to go on that 30-10 surge. You were waiting on them to just completely pile on and obliterate you. And that's kind of what they did for every game that wasn't necessarily in the month of January last season. So that's kind of who UConn was last year. Whereas this team, to me, is kind of epitomized by Cam Spencer. And what I mean by that is that this is not, and I will go to my grave saying this, I do not think that this team is as skilled or as talented as last year's UConn team was. I don't think that they're as deep. I don't think that they're as old or as much of a veteran team. I do understand that there are probably going to end up being at least 3 pros coming out of this group, 3 NBA players. Steph Castle, obviously, is going to be an NBA player. Donovan Clingan, obviously going to be an NBA player. Alex Caravan, more likely than not, probably will be an NBA player. Cam Spencer, I will go to my grave saying that he is a guy that should, at the very minimum, get a 2-way contract. I actually spoke with an NBA front office guy when I was in Kentucky and Lexington last weekend, who very much agreed with my assessment that I think Cam Spencer needs to be somebody in the NBA picture. I don't know if he's necessarily someone that gets drafted, but get him on a contract, get him on a 2-way, get him on a G League, get him on an exhibit, whatever it is, get him into your organization and just see if it works. Because he's one of those dudes where I just think he's going to figure it out. But the point is that I don't think this group is as naturally gifted, if that makes sense, as naturally talented as the group was last year. And that's what happens when you lose a Jordan Hawkins and an Andre Jackson, right? But what they are is they are steady. They are consistent. They are extremely well drilled, and they are extremely good at being in the right position and in the place that they are supposed to be. They don't really make mistakes that beat themselves. There are some turnovers, there are some bad possessions, there are some missed shots, but for the most part, they are running what they're supposed to run. They're getting the shots that they're supposed to take, and they are where they are supposed to be defensively. Um, and in that video breakdown that I did, kind of breaking down their ball screen defense, the one thing as I went back and I watched all the film on that is that they are so good at making the right read in rotations and making the right read when it comes to kind of like the scramble drill stuff, right? Where if somebody gets beat and another defender has to come over and help, they know who has the next help so that they can all make sure that they get to the right closeout. It's all shell drill stuff. It's all closeout drill stuff. It's all exceptionally well drilled and the kind of thing that you have to be able to do. You have to have intelligent players. You have to have guys that kind of understand already what they're doing defensively, and you have to have coaches that can really drill that stuff down. And it's really impressive to watch. And it's why you don't really see this Yukon team go on these like 32-10 surges, right? They just kind of slowly but surely wear you down, where they're going to get stops on, you know, 3 out of 5 possessions, and they're going to score on 3.5 out of 5 possessions. And if you do that over every 5 possession stretch during a game, then you're winning every one of those 5 possession stretches by 2 points. And eventually all of that stuff adds up and you get a double digit win where it never feels like UConn isn't in control. I think Butler and a little bit St. John's, but I think Butler was the perfect example of this because it it never it never felt like UConn got out of like second gear. They were just kind of there playing, right? And it also never felt like this was a Butler team that was going to find a way to be able to make a run and get back in this, right? Like they cut it to 2 possessions, but that was never a team that looked like they were getting ready to pull an upset. Whereas UConn never really looked like they were going to get ready to pull away, but they just kind of held Butler at arm's length. And that is a good Butler team. Okay. They won at Marquette. They won at Creighton. They're an 8 seed and are fielding the 68 projections right now. Like they are a good basketball team. And they just never really got it going against UConn. And I was very, very impressed with that. Nice to see them establish Donovan Clingan early on in that game. Nice to see Cam Spencer like really get it going. I was asked the other day if I'm worried about Tristan Newton shooting the ball, Tristan Newton offensively, and I'm not. Like I probably should go back before I say this with the utmost confidence, but I should probably go back and watch it a little bit more. But my gut says that part of the reason why he's shooting a lower percentage right now in Big East play and why he's struggling a little bit compared to what he was earlier on this season. I think he's at 30.5% from three on the season. He's shooting 26.6% from three in Big East play. Is that he's being asked to play a little bit of a different role than he did last year. Last year, a lot of what UConn did offensively stemmed from throwing the ball into Damasanogo in the post and letting him try to go create something, running offense through Andre Jackson and being able to get sets where you just have Jordan Hawkins sprinting into a screen, right? This year, you can't really do that as much because you don't have that player where you could throw the ball into him in the post. And look, Donovan Clingan was awesome on Tuesday, playing back to the basket, take 7 dribbles on the low block, assert position, use your leverage, use your weight. Like he's just a very, very different player than Adama Sanogo is because he's 7'3" with high hips. Like he's just never going to be great at getting leverage because when you are that tall and that slim, you just aren't. It's just physical nature. And we talk about that. I hate that I got to go over and over this, but it's kind of maybe I do for my own sanity. Um, Either way, it's more difficult to be able to throw the ball into him and just trust that you're going to be able to get a good shot. Cam Spencer, very good at coming off of screens. He's not as fast. He's not as athletic. He's not Jordan Hawkins. No one is Jordan Hawkins. No one's ever going to be Jordan Hawkins. He's probably the best that we'll ever see what he was doing, that specific skill in college. And then like Steph Castle, Cam Spencer, it takes a little bit of the creation burden off of Tristan Newton. But the way that the offense kind of works now is at the end of a clock, the ball ends up in Tristan's hands and he kind of has to go out and create something. And I think part of the reason his shooting numbers are down is because he's ending up with more uh, low percentage, inefficient jumpers off the dribble than he did last season. And I think it's easier to put a little bit more attention on him in those situations because of the fact that he's getting it in a late clock. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. He's still going to make the shots. He still is clutch. He still finds a way to get into the paint. He's still creating. He's still doing the things he's supposed to be doing offensively. He's just getting stuck taking tougher shots this year than he did last year. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm not worried about it at all. I don't know if he's still in the conversation to be a first team All-American as of right now, but whatever. I think he'd be very happy winning a second straight national title and not getting named a first team All-American while watching some of these other guards that do get named first team All-American and second team All-American get knocked out in the first round of the tournament. That's just my guess on the way that dude is wired. So, in terms of the way that the schedule kind of shakes out, one thing I do just want to note, and I want to prepare everybody for, and I want to get ahead of it because I know it's going to be a thing. And I don't, the way the way that we all work, and I'm guilty of this as well, is overreacting to one loss or overreacting to a couple losses that come in a short span of time. As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 each and every week of the college basketball season. We have a special offer that will be available starting on Tuesday, January 9th and running through Monday, February 12th, the morning after Super Bowl 58. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, in honor of the big game, you can use the bonus code FIELD158 and you'll get $158 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app. Sign up using the bonus code FIELD158. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive $158 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD158 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available under one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in New York or Philly, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create separate accounts in each state. It's easy, it's simple, it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the heart of the college basketball season. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odd boosts, and my favorite, a nice juicy parlay boost. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Field 158. What's going on, everybody? Rob Doster here from the Field of 68, and I need to tell you about a partnership that we just signed with Autograph, a fandom company co-founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady.
Brady in the gun. Touchdown, Patriots!
I can't deal with my clogged Twitter feed anymore. Every single tweet gets 3 responses from some Twitter bot promoting gambling picks. I just want to read the articles, man. I just want to read stories. I just want to listen to my favorite podcast. I just want to consume the content that breaks down my favorite college basketball team, and I want to do it all in one place. Now I can with the new Autograph Rewarding Fandom app. That place exists. And here's the best part about it. The more content you consume about your favorite team and the more reward points that I rack up, the better my chances are going to be to score one-of-a-kind fan merch, discounted tickets to games, or other awesome items and experiences on the Autograph app. So go download it, use that referral code F68, that's F68, and get access today. And hey, if you do, maybe I'll get my buddy Tom to send you a thank you note. UConn's toughest stretch of the season, without a doubt, is the last 3 weeks of the regular season heading straight into the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament. Last 6 games. Home for Marquette, at Creighton, home Villanova, home Seton Hall, at Marquette, at Providence. The 3 toughest road games that UConn is going to play this season come in their last 5 games. The 2 times that they play the other potential Final Four team in the Big East come in the last 6 games. The second most difficult road venue they have to play in at Creighton comes in the last 5 games. Villanova, Seton Hall, and Providence are all going to be in a position where that win against UConn, that potential win against UConn, could end up being the difference between going to the NIT and going to the NCAA tournament. Those are all teams that are right there on the bubble right now. That is a nightmare run-in, and I would not be surprised to see UConn go 3-3 in that stretch. I just wouldn't. If you remember last year, UConn had their nightmare stretch at the start of January. It started on December 31st, actually, and it was at Xavier, at Marquette, then there was a home game, and then they were at Creighton. So you had in a 4-game stretch your 3 toughest road games of the year, and UConn lost all 3 of them. And what they did was allow that to seep into the next 4 games, where again they lost 3 out of 4 immediately afterwards. They let it spill into a road game at Seton Hall. They let it spill into a home game against St. John's where they lost by 11 points. And what UConn cannot do here is allow any slip ups and any hiccups during that stretch to be something that carries over. Like, you know how damn good you are. You're the reigning national champions. You're number 1 in America. You're sitting here at 21-2. You've won 11 straight games. You're all alone in first place in the Big East. You're awesome. Don't let one loss bother you, because, to be frank, if you look at what they've actually done this season, I think you can make the argument that they've only played one team that you could call like a legit Final Four contender as of today, right? And that would be North Carolina. Indiana, they stink, okay? Texas is 4-6 in the Big 12. They are not what we thought they were going to be when that schedule got made, when UConn played them. I believe they were a top 10 team in the moment there. Gonzaga might fuck around and miss the NCAA tournament. St. John's, bubble team. Butler, bubble team. Xavier, bubble team. At home against Creighton, yes, that's a good win. Villanova, bubble team. Xavier, bubble team. Providence, bubble team. St. John's, bubble team. Butler, bubble team. They have the wins, and the schedule has not aged the way that I necessarily expected it to, and it does not look quite as strong right now as it did back at the start of the year. To kind of put this all into perspective, since the win over North Carolina, UConn has beaten one top 35 team in KenPom that is not named Gonzaga. And Gonzaga is a team I think is a little bit of a metrics darling because of what has happened playing in the WCC. So I just want to put that into context, right? The second best team that UConn has played in the Big East right now, according to KenPom, is a Xavier team that is missing their top 2 big guys. So it's going on a run where you win these games, 6 straight games: Creighton, Villanova, Xavier, Providence, St. John's, Butler, 2 of which were on the road. Like, that's not a bad thing. It's not embarrassing. Winning at Butler is not bad. Winning at Xavier is not a bad thing, but it's not like you're going out there and they are beating Houston and they are beating Kansas and they are beating Tennessee and they are beating Alabama and Auburn and some of these different teams. So I want to make sure we get that in context, because once this schedule gets into the most difficult part of the season, some losses are going to come. Don't let it spiral if you're UConn, and don't let it get you to a point where you start freaking out if you are a UConn fan. Okay? Gonna get in front of it. Gonna say it right now, because I know if I say all this stuff in the moment, people are going to be like, you are such a apologist, like you blah, 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 whatever it is. I don't want that to happen. I'm just trying to get in front of it and let you guys know the losses are going to come. It's going to happen at some point during that stretch. That schedule is too difficult to not lose any games. That 5 of the last 8 games are on the road. Then you get into the Big East tournament. So it's going to happen. A loss is coming. Don't overreact to it. Speaking of losses, I do want to just discuss, because I thought it was a really interesting conversation, the most difficult matchups and the nightmare matchups that UConn could see in the NCAA tournament. There's a couple things that I think kind of stand out here. One, at least for me, if I'm game planning against UConn, this is kind of what I think you need to be able to do. You got to be able to attack Caravan at the 4 spot. I think he is, I don't want to say he's a bad defender, because he's definitely improved, but that is where you can probably find the most success if you have an elite 4-man. Problem is, this year, there aren't that many elite 4-men out there in college basketball. You need a 5-man that can get Clingan into foul trouble. He's gotten a little bit jumpy on pump fakes. If you have someone that is skilled, that can space him out a little bit, that frankly can do a lot of the things that Josh Aduro showed that he was able to do, then you can be able to get Clingan in foul trouble. And once you get Clingan in foul trouble, if you have guards that can penetrate and get to the rim, that's when you can expose UConn's perimeter defense that is not quite as good as it was last season. So, and you got to be able to do all of that without relying on ball screens. Here's a crazy stat for you. Despite all of the inconsistency with Donovan Clingan in the lineup, UConn currently ranks 98th percentile on synergy in ball screen defense. 98th percentile, which is a ridiculously high number. And it just says a lot about why this team has been so good on the defensive end of the floor, despite missing the Great Wall of Bristol for a big stretch of the season. So there are a couple teams that kind of fall into that category for me. I do think that Marquette is just about the worst possible matchup that you can have for this iteration of UConn, because of Oso Ighodaro's ability to play on the perimeter, to be a passer, to really be dangerous in short roll actions. I think that when you're in drop coverage, short rolls are something that can be effective, and I think that especially when you're hedging high, Samson Johnson, uh, that is when short rolls can be really effective. Part of why Kansas lit up Houston on Saturday is Houston runs like a kind of it's not the same as what UConn does with Samson Johnson, but they hedge on ball screens. And so what Kansas did was they started their offense a good 40 feet away from the basket, ran those ball screens, and then immediately, as soon as two guys came to the point guard, threw the ball to KJ Adams on a short roll, which basically means all of a sudden you have a 4-on-3 with two Houston players out of the play. And I would expect Marquette to try to do something similar in those actions against Samson Johnson, because Oso Ighodaro is better at doing that than KJ Adams is. And I think that Oso is also a guy that can kind of take advantage of clinging a little bit, because he's so like Oso's just so good at that little like 12-foot push shot. And that's something where once Tyler Kolek going against drop coverage has somebody on their hip, he should be able to find Oso over and over and over again. And if you get clinging into foul trouble, I do think that I mean, with like the Cam Joneses of the world, and I think Chase Ross should be back at some point here. Kolek too. Like you have a lot of guys that can get to the basket. David Joplin. So I think that is Marquette's a tough matchup. Um, I think that once you get past the elite teams, um, I would say, currently in our like 7 to 10 range on the fielding the 68 bracket, one of the teams I wouldn't want to see is a Boise State who has good guard play. Tyson Degenhart is one of the best four men in college basketball. I know it's the Mountain West. Everyone makes the jokes about them not being able to win in March, but San Diego State made that run, and they have some big guys. They have some size, so that would be a tough matchup. But I'm more concerned with teams that are in like that 4 seed range. I think Illinois would be a very, very, very difficult matchup for UConn because of Coleman Hawkins' ability to space and do some of the things that Oso and KJ Adams do, because of Terrence Shannon's ability to get to the bucket, because of the fact that Illinois can legitimately switch 1 through 5, because they have 2 or 3 guys that are really, really good one-on-one scorers. Illinois is a team that is very capable of losing in the first round to a 13 seed. They are very capable of losing to a 13 seed by 20 points if they end up being a 4 seed. They're also talented enough where if things go right, they have Final Four upside. Auburn has maybe the best. I mean, he's up there as one of the best foremen in college basketball in Jalen Williams, and they have a 5 in Janai Broome that is similar to Aduro in his ability to kind of draw fouls and get people in foul trouble. So I think that's a difficult matchup, and just the fact that their guards can get out and pressure so hard, you're not going to be able to run very good offense against Auburn. They are a very, very, very good team. They're kind of trending towards what looks like that 4 line. And the last one I've written down is just Alabama, because Alabama can space the floor at the 5 spot, because of Clingan's lack of like low post physicality. I don't think that they will get exposed by the fact that they're as much by the fact that their bigs are kind of tall and slender and not exactly the most physical players in the country. They shoot a ton of threes, and their entire mantra is get a layup or shoot a 3, and that should be a difficult thing for UConn to deal with because they have a lot of guys that can get to the basket. But those are the ones that I had written down. Obviously, like Purdue is going to be the toughest matchup they face, and North Carolina is going to be a really tough matchup. But they play again. They're playing like I didn't want to just stick with the elite teams in college basketball. Who are the teams in that second round, Sweet 16, that UConn fans would not want to see? And those are the 3 or 4 that I kind of came up with. So enjoy your weekend, guys. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I think it's going to be a fascinating game. I am kind of personally pulling for Brock Purdy and the 49ers because I grew up a 49ers fan, but I would not hate it if what ended up coming out of this was Travis Kelce won the Super Bowl and it's very tired immediately on the spot. And the Kelsey brothers went off to become like the superstars of the their post football career. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But I would like to see the 49ers win. Who doesn't love themselves Brock Purdy? So enjoy the game. Enjoy Saturday's matchup with Georgetown. Hopefully that'll be something where UConn can find a way to get a win in an empty, is it the Capital One Center, Verizon Center, whatever it is, the big phone booth. And we'll catch up again, hopefully on Monday.